Hey everybody, my name is Marty, and welcome back to another epic journey in C++. This is part 5 of the login program, and today we're going to wrap up the series, get the program finished. We should hope, unless any other odd situations arise, which has happened before. It's called programming gremlins. They pop out of nowhere. Where do they come from? Nobody knows. It's like program works fine 1 second, and then the next you're skipping rope and running off to the butterfly farm. Here's the code where we had a last video. Now the only problem with last video's code was that we could use any old username and we could tie it to any old password. So what we need is some sort of ID system that will tag each username and password with an ID, and then those IDs need to match in order for us to log into the program. Let's check it out. And let's go with, who do we have? We had Dave, I do believe. Dave at email.com. Yeah, and then this is the part where it gets a little scary. We just use Ricky's password. Hacker time. Firstly, we're going to edit our save file function. So scroll down. So far, after each password, we've been just leaving a little 0, just making a little sedimentary deposit of 0. However, we want to leave something like, perhaps, let's just say hashtag ID, and then we can set a number. So this way we can assign each password and username to a number. This way, this second password will have the ID of, let's say, 2. Then we'll have to go to users.data, and then the second username will also have a ID of 2 as well. So that is what we want to do. Go into main.cpp. In save file, we're going to add another parameter. This is going to be the ID. Let's call it an integer. Int, and we'll go const int reference, and we'll call it ID. This const keyword just promises you're not going to change it, and we're honest programmers, so we shouldn't really change things that we say we're not going to change. Then the reference just says we're not creating a new integer, we're actually using a different integer that we've got somewhere else. Where else? It could be in the Caribbean, we don't know, but it's somewhere else. So then instead of just appending a 0 to the very end of each word or password, we're going to add a little bit of text. So we're going to go hashtag ID. It doesn't have to be a hashtag. You guys can use whatever you want. And then we're going to add a colon. And then after that, we're going to actually write the ID. We also took out the new line that we added, and that is because having this extra line at the very end is kind of difficult to deal with. Because the way the ID system works is we check the last ID. So in this case, if we had an ID here of 3, so we'd get that ID and then we'd just add 1 to it. However, if we have this extra line, getting the very last line becomes slightly more difficult, so that's why we want to get rid of it. So that's why we don't add the new line. However, we do need to add a new line somewhere, but we don't want to add the new line at the very end. We just want to add the new line right here. So then the question is, where do we add that new line? Well, let's just run a program and see what happens. So scroll down, go into main. Instead of going app.login, we'll just comment it out. Why are we commenting it out? Well, I don't know. I just don't feel like typing that out again. Is it an early sign of laziness? Maybe. So let's go app.save file, chuckles at email.com. We're going to save that to users.data, and then we're going to give it a key of sorts, or an ID. So let's go int key equals 1. Let's just start with 1 for now. Then we'll give it key as a parameter. Let's go app.save file. This will be Chuck will be the username, and that will be in passwords.data, and then we'll give it key. So what this should do is it'll assign a key to Chuckle's email, and then also the Chuck password. Let's open up our folder and delete both our passwords and our users.data files. So delete both of them. If you're on Sublime, you can actually just delete them right here, which is very cool. Now, unless I did a goof up, this should run. And it does. Let's see what we get in. Whoa, what's going on? Yes, reload, please. Reload. So now we get our usual encrypted password, except the only difference is now we have this ID 1. If we check out users.data, we have this ID 1 as well. But immediately we noticed a problem, and that's our cursor is set on this line, on the last line. If we run the program again, and let's just change this up to Muckles, and his name will be Muck. All right, and we save those, right? And we open up passwords.data, we'll notice that, whoa, what's this? That's some confusion. That's what that is. So we do need some sort of new line. So let's go to main.cpp, and how about we're in save file? Let's add the new line at the very beginning. So before we actually start writing. So we're going to go file, and then we go cram something in that file, which is why it looks like 2 mouths, because it's kind of pointing. You cram it in. That actually proves to not be helpful in remembering it at all, because I can never remember which way these angler brackets go. That's why we use search engines to solve our problems. You know why I didn't say we use Google? Because I use DuckDuckGo. Why do I use DuckDuckGo, you may say? I use DuckDuckGo because DuckDuckGo keeps the scary internet goblins away. So let's delete those files again. Right click, delete file, and right click, delete file. Now let's run it again. Same thing. Just hit F7 if you're on Sublime. And now if we check out the files, you'll notice that we got a blank line right off the bat, which is going to cause a bit of unexpected behavior. If we ran this again, it would all work fine. So the only time it's not working correctly is when there's nothing in the file. We can actually check for that in main.cpp by going into save file. So if we go file.seekg, now why did they put a G in there? I don't really know what the G means. So file.seek here just sets our cursor to anywhere in the text file, and we can actually set it to the very last position, which is right here. So go 0 and then ios end. So the ios end says, okay, set our cursor to the very end of the file, and then the 0 here says no offset from that either. So if we went like a -1, it would actually put our cursor here, and then -1 would be here. -2 would be here. 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Let's set that to -0. Now let's tack on an if statement. If file.telg, I don't know what the G stands for again. If file.telg doesn't equal 0, then we're going to add a new line at the very beginning. So what we're essentially doing is we set the position of the cursor to the very end of the file, and then with telg we say, hey, where exactly is this cursor at? Or caret. Carets and cursors, they always get me all messed up. One's a veggie, the other's a computer thing, but the veggie can be a computer thing. Telg gives us the position of the caret. If we had a blank file, so if we had nothing at all, then setting the caret to the end of the file will just set it to 0. So this way we can tell if the file is empty by setting our cursor to the very end of the file, and then if that file is 0. If it is 0, we do not want to do this, which is why we say if file.telg doesn't equal 0, so meaning there is something in the file, then we're going to add a new line. So let's delete those files. Right click, delete. We might be deleting them a lot. Trash can could get a little full. And let's just run that again with save file, muckles and chuckles. So nothing should display in the terminal. And if we go to passwords.data and users.data, you'll notice that it works exactly fine. We've got everything behaving as expected and wanted. Let's scroll up and create a new function. So we're gonna create a function that allows us to sign up to the program. Right after login, let's create a void, and this will be add user. So void add user, and it's going to take a constant string. We're telling it to be constant because we don't want to mess around with it later. It's kind of like a reminder to yourself. Also, if you were writing APIs, you would want to use const a lot. Const string p word, maybe I should just say password, otherwise I'm going to confuse myself beyond all hope with all these abbreviations, and then I'll start going, they're coming to take me away, hee, they're coming to take me away, haha. And then a constant, or perhaps let's do a username first. Constant username, and then constant string password. I didn't even realize how loud this keyboard is going to be. I got a new keyboard for Christmas. My brother gave it to me and I really like it. It's very nice and very cool, but I don't know how loud it's going to be. I should have done a test recording. That would have helped, but hindsight is always 20/20, if not better. Anyway, I just hope it's not too loud. Otherwise, I'll have to go back to the other keyboard for when I'm recording. Because if it's like I'm doing a little tap dance here, well, it's not going to help. Now we're going to hit 2 birds in 1 stone. And the second problem that we were noticing is that we can actually sign up multiple users. So we can have 2 of the same usernames, which is not behavior we want. So before we actually create a username, we want to check our file to see if that username already exists. So let's go if check file. We're going to check our username and we're going to check it in our users.data. If that happens, meaning we have already used that username, we're going to break. So with voids, you can actually break. Yeah, I meant to say return. With voids, you can actually return, but you don't return anything because it just returns a void. This will just exit the function immediately. While we're here, we might as well print a little message. Cout that username is not available. Sucker. And then we'll end the line just like that. Voila, problemo solved. So now when we add a new user, we're going to check and make sure we don't already have that user. Now, we don't want to do the same thing with password because if we told a user that they entered somebody else's password, that would greatly hamper the security of our code because then they'd know somebody else's passwords and then it's just a matter of trying a username. We won't allow duplicate usernames, but we will allow duplicate passwords for different usernames. Next, let's create an integer. So let's go int ID. We're going to set this equal to 1 plus get last ID. So this is a function we have not created yet, and calling functions that are not created yet, I believe, is a style. I think it's called like reverse coding or something, but it's basically coding backwards. It's like riding a bike backwards. Does it work? Eventually. So once we calculate our ID, then we're going to go save file, and we're going to save our username to users.data, and then we're going to give it our ID, and then we're going to do the same thing, save file and password, and then we're going to save that to passwords.data, and we're going to give it the exact same ID. Oh, sitting on my foot, fell asleep. I'm starting to sound old. I'm going, oh, my foot. Ugh, goodness. All right, so let's create that get ID function. So let's go void, or actually it'll be an integer. We're going to return something. So int get last ID. And it's not going to take any parameters. Open up some curly braces. We're going to read a file. So go fstream and then file. Let's open that file up with file.open, and we're going to open up. The file path will be users.data. We could use passwords or we could use the usernames. It doesn't really matter, either or. And then let's go ios in. All right, so now let's set our caret browser to the very end of the file. So go file.seek g. Look for that g field. We're not going to have an offset. And then ios : end. Hit enter, and then now let's go if file.tell g equals -1. Well, in that case, then the file is going to be empty, and then we're going to just return 0. So you're probably thinking, hey, hold on. File.tellg in the last version or last episode, file.tellg returned a 0 when we were at the end of the line and it was a blank file. That's because we're reading this with ios in, which is different from ios append. So ios append automatically sets you up to the very end of the file, which is why we get a 0 in this case. But in ios in actually sets our caret 1 to the left of the last character. We can actually print that out. So let's go cout file.tellg, and then we'll see what we get. std : end out. Scroll down into main.cbp, the main file, and just take out all this save file stuff and just go app. Hold on. App. What did I do? Yep, caps lock. App.add user, and then we're going to add, let's say, Bob. Just real quick. It doesn't have to be at email.com. You just want to go Bob, and his password is B. So if you save that and run that, we should actually print out a -1. Right, so -1. Let's scroll back up. It's the way it starts with file with ios in. Next, we're going to create a string. So string s 10 out of 10 for creativity for my variables. Hey, so this little bit here just deals with in the event that the file is blank. I just realized the glitch that we would have. Let's go to save file. So right here we set our caret to the very end of the file, but then we forgot to set it to the beginning of the file again, which we need to do that in order for this to actually work. So go file.seek g, and then we're going to set that to ios begin, which is ios beg. There. So that was a little error we would have later on the line if we didn't fix it now. So let's scroll up, and so right after string s, we're going to create a for loop. So for int I equals -1. So we're going to create a variable, set it equal to -1, and then as long as of s dot find, as long as if our string s does not contain the character hashtag, then it means we have not quite found our ID number. So we want that to be equal to string in pos, and then we'll decrement I every time. So you know how we were talking about that offset there? You can actually fiddle around with that offset to go a couple characters to the left. What we're going to do is we're going to set our caret to right here, like so, the very end of the file, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go to the left until we find a hashtag. Once we found a hashtag, I might learn to speak properly. Once we find a hashtag, then we're going to read the line, and that will give us our ID. So the reason we set I to equal to -0 right off the bat is by the first iteration of this for loop, we want to already move our caret 1 to the left. So let's go file.seek g, file.cg, and we're going to go I. So this way we're going to decrement I every single iteration. So by the 4th iteration, I will be equal to a -4, meaning we've moved 4 characters to the left in our file. So that's kind of how it's going to work. So set that equal to I, and then iOS : end. Once we do that, we're going to go file. We're going to feed string a little bit of that file. So whatever we have so far in the line. Now, there's probably a bit of confusion surrounding this string endpost stuff. Basically what we say here is if hashtag is found at a non-valid position, then it means it's not there yet. Think of this string endpost as just false. So that's kind of how that works. Once we finish our for loop and we do find that hashtag and we add it to our line or a string, then we're going to go file.close. No need to keep it open anymore. Now we've got these 4 extra characters here, this hashtag ID and then a colon. We want to get rid of those because we're only interested in the number. Go back to main.cbp, and then we're going to go s.erase. So we can actually erase the very first 4 characters by going 0 and then 4. So 0 is the starting position of the left, and then 4 is the end position. So how many characters do we want to erase? Well, we want to erase the first 4. Then we're going to create an integer here, a temporary integer, because once we exit this squarely brace, which is a scope, then we're going to delete it. So go int ID. Doesn't have to be anything yet. And now we're going to convert this string into a integer. So by this point, our string should be equal to a number such as 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how many passwords and usernames we already have. And then we just want to convert that to an integer. So to convert strings to integers, we just go string. It's a weird function with a weird name. It's basically saying convert a string to an integer. That's why it's got the I there. And then we're going to convert that S to an integer, and then we're going to load that into ID. After all of that is said and done, we're going to return ID. And by this point, we should have a pure integer, and it should be equal to whatever this number right here is, even if it was like 100 and something million. So let's delete our passwords.data, delete file. Yeah, you can close without saving their Sublime, and delete that file as well. So let's save it, run it. Error time. Yay! All right, and we've got an error. We can't find this iString stream tongue twister function. That's because we got to go to the top and we got a hashtag include string, which is string stream, like so. So now if we save it and run it, it should actually work completely. Close out, and if we go into passwords.data or users.data, either or, we'll notice that ID is set to 1 because this is the first password or username, and then this here is the first password. So go to main.cbp, and if we scroll down, let's just check what we have for our username. So our username is Bob. If we hit F7, it should actually tell us that username is not available. What do we do now? Uh-oh. So let's go with Bobby. Bobby's very close friends with Bob. So control save that. And if we hit F7, they can still have the same password and it'll work. And then we go into passwords.data and users.data. What? We got the same thing. And that's due to another typo. I noticed that some YouTubers, like programming YouTubers, they don't ever have typos. It's just not natural. That's not programming, at least not from my experience. I have lots of errors. All right, so the little problem is a very common mistake that I like to make a lot. It's just a lot of fun. You see, a comparison operator is 2 equal signs, whereas an assignment operator is just 1. So we're saying file.tell definitely equals -1 instead of asking. So we need to ask and not demand. So if we run it now, it actually should work, and we should get a 2 for our ID instead of just a 1. You know what they say, works like a charm? It won't work very well because there's no such thing as user.data. It's users.data. So let's delete our files a second. Delete file and delete file. And let's save it and run it. See what we get. So let's open up users.data, see what happened. Everything looks to be in order. And same with passwords.data. So go to main.cbp and let's change our username a quick second so that we got something else. We'll go with Bobby, but spelled a little different. And we'll run it, see what happens. So in this case, we notice the end of the file is 66 characters long, which if we go to users.data and then we highlight this, it's 66 characters, if you can see that. I'll try and do a quick little zoom on it. Look at that. 66 characters, like so. And it increments our ID, so that's working perfectly. Alright, so now we can keep on adding usernames and passwords as we please. The more the merrier. Excellent, so go into main.cbp. The only thing we need to fix now is the way we actually handle our usernames and passwords. So let's go into get file, check file. We're going to change it from a bool into an integer. The reason we do this is we want to return the ID of each individual password or username so that we can cross compare them. If we, however, do not even find the attempted added username or password, then we're just going to return 0. So scroll down, and now we no longer have that if char equals 0. So now you'll notice that we've actually added some words to our file now. In this case, we're going to now need a string instead of what we had before, which was just a long. So let's create a string. We're going to go string, and we're going to call it current line. This is the current line we're on, not the total line. Instead of dumping our file into the eCar variable, we're going to now dump it into our current line. Now we no longer need to test if eCar is equal to 0. Instead, we test if our current line has the characters hashtag and then ID in it. So let's go if current line dot find, and then we're going to look for hashtag ID colon. So if we do find that, which means it is not an invalid position where we found it, string, and then what the, don't know what that was all about, but it was some serious shenanigans. String and then n pause. Then we're going to check if attempt equals line. If attempt does equal line, meaning the file does contain that attempted password or username, then we're going to close the file like we had before, and then we're going to go current line dot erase. We're going to want to erase those first 4 characters, which is the hashtag ID. So this way we don't monkey fumble our program. Don't want that to happen. So erase from 0, character 0 to 4. Then we're going to create an integer. That's going to be ID. Then we're going to convert that string to an integer with is string stream. And then we're going to give it our current line as a parameter. And then we're going to jam that into ID. After all that is said and done, we're going to return our ID. Now, in the event that we have not found this hashtag ID colon yet, then we're going to scroll down and right where we go else. So in this case, let's convert that current line to a eCar. So I string stream current line, and then we're going to jam that into eCar, and then we're going to set our current line, or let's call it current character. I believe that's a little more explicit, equal to blank. So let's just go current character. Otherwise, we are going to be very confused. I mean, I'm already confusing myself, and I don't even know what's happening. Help! So just gotta find all those current lines and replace it with current character. Sometimes it's a pain to change variable names, but it's also worth it. It's more of a pain to have a bad variable name than it is to change it. That's why I generally find. All right, and that should just about do it. Oh, one more. Just when you say that should just about do it, well, then it goes ahead and pulls a move like that. All right, the only thing to take into account now is what if we have hit the very end of the file. In that case, we're going to return, instead of false, we're going to return 0. So now when we go add user, so scroll up, wherever that is, right around here, we're going to replace this check with if check file doesn't equal 0, meaning we have in fact found that particular requested username. Well, then we're going to say that username is not available. All right, and now if we scroll up and into our login program, we're going to go int, and we're going to call this user ID. So the username ID equals check file. We can actually just copy and paste that. Control X to cut it, and then Control V to paste it. So we're going to set this integer user ID equal to check file. If it's false, it's going to return 0, and if it's true, meaning we found it, it's going to return the ID. So if user ID does not equal 0, meaning it is not false, then we shall continue, and then we're going to go create an integer here, int password ID equals, we can just copy and paste this too. Look at that, 2 copy and pastes in one day. Then the only check we need to do here is if user ID is equal to our password ID, keyword ID, and that should work pretty good, I hope. So let's create a bunch of users here. Scroll down. Let's delete our files first so we can get rid of those bubbies. Scroll down to main, gus@email.com. Control save. He's a simple man, keeps his password simple. User ID was not declared in the scope. Yes, I predicted I would confuse myself if I used these weird acronyms. Yeah, but there. Problem solved. So let's try that again. Hit F7. What? Yeah, I did the same thing twice. Oh, but I've already committed to these weird variables. Might as well go with it. Alright, so let's run that now, and that should work. Yes, it does work. So if we check users.data, everything seems normal. If we check passwords.data, everything seems normal as well. Going to main.cpp, while we're scrolling down, we might as well take out our print line right here. We can just take that out. No need to tell us that anymore. And let's add a few more usernames. In addition to Gus, we're gonna get the whole crew. Ricardo, his password will be Ricardo. Oh, but he's a little He's a twisty guy. He's got Ricardo 5. I'm just trying to keep these simple so I'll remember them all. Let's do one more. How about Jake? And his password will be Jake as well. And hit F7. I think that's enough passwords. Good to go. So now let's take out this app.addUser. We should have 3 usernames and 3 passwords. And we replace that. Get that app.login back up and running and hit F7 and run it. Username is required. So let's go with Ricardo at email.com. Hit enter. Oh yeah, this is why I wanted to keep it simple. Ricardo at email.com. So let's try just Ricardo 5. Hey, that's right, we got in. So let's try that again with the wrong password, but the right username. So let's go Ricardo at email.com. And then in the password, let's try Gus. Password. Not even close. And I do believe we are done with this tutorial series. Someone did mention that we should have the ability so that we can hide the password input. However, that's OS specific. I generally want to keep it the same so that my Linux users and my Windows users can follow along equally, and there's not different systems for each. So that's kind of my reasoning why as well. If you're up to the challenge, you're more than welcome to give it a go on your own. I'll link over some helpful stuff. So then you should be able to implement that fairly straightforward. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the series. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, comments, or anything to say at all, let me know down below. Thanks for watching and subscribing. Code like, and I'll see you next video. And now, a quick word from the channel's very first sponsor. Everybody likes to laugh. The trouble is, not everything makes you laugh, which is why we have little nuggets like these. So this is the first in the McVanBuck book series, and it's a treasure trove filled with humorous stories that are guaranteed to make you laugh. Even the toughest of nuts have been known to crack when they read this. So it's a book written by my dad, and it's a prelude to a bigger book that will be coming out soon. Let's just read what the back says. Medical oxygen hoses have quite a bit of whipping power to them in the hands of a McVanBuck, even if this McVanBuck was still half ill. The main lessons are, don't play with matches when your wife is looking, don't smoke while you have a high concentrated oxygen hose attached to your nose, keep your eyebrows in one piece, and don't try to put eyebrows on old ladies when their oxygen hoses are within their reach. So as an end of the series special, I'm going to be giving away 10 of these McVanBuck mini books. All you got to do to claim it is just send your mailing address to my email, which is codergopher@gmail.com. Again, that's codergopher@gmail.com. Get it while it lasts. Laughter is guaranteed.